and esteemed author. Thank you, Nikki. And we have Alicja Wypasek. Is that pronounced right, Alicja?
It's okay.
Who is a nutritionist. I'm going to hand over to Alicja first tonight to kick this off. So thanks very much, Alicja.
Yes, I'm going to share the screen. Okay. Okay, let me share. Here you go. Oops. Okay, because I have all that I need to pass very quickly because this is what we've been talking last week and I'm not going to repeat all. Okay, it's clear. Everybody can see the screen now? It's all okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you, Liz. Thank you everyone for joining us today at our part 2 session. I will bring back the topic from last week about our pets. So who was here with us today? We are still going to talk a little bit about food and mood and importance of the healthy microbiome, the balance of the bacteria, and that's the word pets. About the gut health before we move to anti-inflammatory diet. And especially when we are in pain and when we have the chronic pain, we often struggle with our mood. So we have these ups and downs. We can get depressed very quickly, fatigue, and we also may have anxiety and brain fog. So we all experience that. Then we end up eating highly processed foods. And it's basically due to the lack of energy and appetite, and we just crave different things at the time when we are very low. And if this process repeats for months and years, we may end up eating a white diet, which is not colorful, for 3, 4, 5. You can ask yourself how often you have white diet. When you don't put too much color on your plate. And if this is stay too long, that may cause problems with your digestion as well. Not only your mood, generally develop the chronic disease, but also with your digestion, because you stop to feed different bacteria, because already we talked about the variety last week, and it's very important to look after our pets, to feed our microbes, and we would like to have different colors on our plate. And I often hear from people that they can't eat raw, or they can't eat fruits or some vegetables. Often I hear like, I can't eat healthy. And if that's the case, this is a problem of the disbalance. And that means that we don't have enough good bacteria in our gut, and they can't help us to digest some foods. And a lot of issues that are labeled as mental health, a kind of, it's easy words to use here when we cover the word depression, anxiety, low mood, which occur to us, not only people with chronic pain, but actually can be resolved when we start treating the actual cause of the origin, which is the gut. And the gut-brain axis is that the connection between our gut and brain, as Deepak told us last week. And brain is talking to the gut, and the gut is talking to the brain. So they all work together. And if you affect your gut by eating not really well, then you affect your brain at the same time. The lack of diversity in our diet leads to chronic disease, and we can even compare people who live in the Western people, who has approximately half of the microbes of people who live in South America or Africa, like people who eat lots of plants. And if we focus on more plant-based diet, we are able to eat more fiber and look after our microbes. So, sorry, I will have a dry drive row. This is a perfect website, and I thought that I will just share the screen here. It's a screenshot of it, because I found a lot of amazing articles and tips, plans. It's really, really useful, and it's diet and mental health. So we all know that it's all connected together. There's huge research about why diet is related with how we feel. And that's all about what we talked last week as well, when we have this leaky gut, when the bacteria, toxins, lipopolysaccharide pass through our cells, pass between the gut lining to the bloodstream, they get into the brain and then affect us and how we feel. So if we will want to improve now our well-being and our mental health and our mood, there is a chance, you know, so it's all good. It's not like we are stuck there. If we just focus on more raw foods, fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains, because if we will look at all these plant-based foods, we know that we can reduce our depression around 30%. So we can increase our happy hormone as well. And there is another meta-analysis which confirmed that diets which are high in fruits and vegetables, also fish, so it's very close to the idea of Mediterranean diet, which is anti-inflammatory, can reduce the depression, so can rise our mental health. And here we have a few pictures. I just choose a few pictures because we can talk about food and mood probably a long time, but maybe you are familiar with the words on the left side, that dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. We all produce different neurotransmitters, depends on what we do during the day. And there is so many things actually we can do, which doesn't correlate with a diet, just to feel better. So if we will think about physical activity, and we don't need to think about going to the gym or, you know, work hard or going for a run, we can be even walking 5 minutes a day outside can also boost our mood, boost our energy, and produce endorphins. If dancing makes you happy, you can stay 5 minutes a day, you know, dancing, and that will increase your endorphins. If we meet around people, if we go for a walk together, or we want to meet for a tea, we will produce more serotonin, which around 90% of serotonin is produced in our gut. And then the oxytocin is one of the hormones which is familiar if you are a mom, especially when we are breastfeeding. It's a special neurotransmitter when it's produced when we feel this bonding, but it's not necessarily produced only in this particular time. It also relates when we talk about a relationship with our pets as well. So hugging, you know, being cozy, close to someone we trust, we love, we can produce oxytocin. And dopamine is a very special neurotransmitter, which around 50% is produced in our gut and another 50% in our brain. And this is our motivation. This is amazing neurotransmitter, because if we produce enough dopamine, then we can stay motivated, we can stay on track to eat healthy, to actually stimulate our body to produce more endorphins and more serotonin. Most of these neurotransmitters are peptides. So they are big blocks, big pieces, let's say, like building blocks, like Lego of amino acids. So if we were asked now what food I should eat to actually get all of this, it's protein. And this is another huge word to use, because we don't need to think about fish or meat. Can be even like broccoli, can be kale, can be lentils or chickpeas, any other plant-based, because proteins are everywhere and we are looking for specific amino acids. So for example, when we talk about serotonin, we are looking for tryptophan, which is one of the amino acids as helping to produce more serotonin. So yeah, this is like, as I said, it's a very big topic, but we just touched base here to let you know that a part of the what we want to focus today is nutrition, but on the one side is nutrition, and on the other side, all the things what we can do to actually feel better and stimulate and keep us on track if we want to follow an anti-inflammatory diet. So what is this anti-inflammatory diet? As I said, it's a Mediterranean style diet, and traditional one, not the one which is now, because if you go to Spain, you probably know what's happened there, exactly the same what's in UK. So we want to think that is a diet which we know as a Mediterranean diet, not the processed one. It's focused on green leaves, so salads, fresh fruits, dark color fruits, spices, whole grains, legumes, a lot of lentils and chickpeas and oily fish and olive oil as well. So I wish actually like people understand the connection between gut and health and mental health better before produce such, processed foods, which we end up eating. But we have the knowledge now and understanding, so we can take action and work on our better health. So let's nourish and feed our gut and our brain and follow the anti-inflammatory diet, which is high in phytonutrients. And the phytonutrients are these chemicals. They are the very powerful chemicals. As you remember, I talked about them a little bit last week. So they have they are very powerful, and they can change even, how our body works at the moment. So like, for example, blueberries, they have very positive effect on how we can stimulate the recovery of different cells, because they are very high in antioxidants. And if we look at now this plate, which looks beautiful, you can tell so many different colors, and everything what is there is actually easy to get in the shop. There is nothing what you need to ask yourself, oh, where I'm going to get this, or I'm going to buy that. So different colors of tomatoes is very easy to get even in Tesco right now, or Lidl. It's not like in the past that maybe the food was not as easy to get as we are open now. And here on the left, we have hummus in the corner. So it's a unicorn hummus, we call it. And it's a beetroot hummus, which we are going to show you how to make it today as well. So Ian will show you how to make it. It's delicious, and the color is just amazing. So the most important ingredients here, which are anti-inflammatory, are the whole grains, and that's the brown colors of bread, brown rice, everything what contains the extra layer on the grain, like the oat bran, or the dark color of pasta. So we call them like brown pastas, brown wheat, so the legume. Legumes, which we talk in legumes in a way like we want to cover the plant. Proteins, which are lentils, and the lentils can be black or green or red. We talk about the beans, which are beautiful as well. So many different colors of beans we can get. Chickpeas. We talk about herbs, spices, and nut seeds. Oh, I have herbs and spices. Sorry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the rainbow today, because this is where the phytonutrients are. And the red foods contain phytonutrients that may help reduce, the risk of cancer as well. So it's protective for the brain, for your blood vessels, and can support not only when you already have any chronic disease, but can also prevent, because it's strongly anti-inflammatory and also antibacterial. In this group, we can find, for example, tomato, which contain lycopene, and this is the red color of the tomato. When we cook, actually, tomato for around 30 minutes, we can increase the amount of this lycopene in such product. So the truth is that if we have tomato and we eat tomato raw, we can get different properties, different benefits from it than when we eat it as cooked tomato, as, for example, tomato sauce. So even if we call it tomato or tomato, we still have, one product we buy in the shop, and we can get two different benefits from it. Depends how we eat it. Is that amazing? it's amazing. It's beautiful. The nature, it's unbelievable. So if we want to get more antioxidants, then we cook tomato, then we increase the lycopene's bioavailability. And also the lycopene is fat soluble. So this is when we have tomato sauce. And as you know, there is already olive oil there, or we cook it. So we add some oil together to make more flavor. It's all connected. Also, the bell pepper, the red bell pepper, is very high in vitamin C and contain bioflavonoids like beta-carotene and quercetin. Quercetin is also very famous. There's the role now, especially after, well, during COVID, that fight against the viruses, but also increases very strong antioxidants. So has amazing properties as reducing inflammation. And the next group after red, we have orange foods. So who can think about orange foods? What we know about orange? What is there? What kind of foods? We obviously oranges, yeah, they are all orange, but also turmeric. So turmeric, you are familiar with it, contain curcumin, and this is very strong anti-inflammatory ingredient as well. Where we can add it, we can use it as fresh turmeric, or we can use it in a powder. So typically we can have like a curry, yeah, and we eat curry with rice or with vegetables. So turmeric is there. But if you have access to get fresh turmeric has actually more anti-inflammatory properties than the powder, and powder is more popular for antibacterial properties. So if you can get root like this, like you see in the picture, you can just peel the skin. It looks very familiar, like ginger. So if you get dirty, you know, when you peel, you need to wash the hands. Don't touch anything this is white around, because the colorant is very, very strong. And the turmeric aids the management of oxidative stress as well, and the inflammatory conditions, so can help you with metabolic syndrome, with arthritis, with anxiety. So it's amazing ingredient to use it, not only with your food, but also you can just shred raw over your salad or do a turmeric tea. What else can be in this orange? The tangerine, all these citrus fruits, they are all orange, the same like carrots. From yellow foods, yeah, family, which we have now, turmeric, there is ginger, very yellow color, and contain gingerol. So it's another compound which is antioxidants and has anti-inflammatory and antibacterial, which goes really well with turmeric. So when we cook like stir fry or like different vegetables on the pan or the tea, I personally like when it's now chilly a little bit outside, to shred a little bit of ginger with turmeric. And we will share some, or I don't know if you will share already, recipes for smoothies. So you will see that there is one anti-inflammatory smoothie when we use ginger, we use turmeric, and we also add some black pepper. So I'm come back a little bit here, because when we want to absorb more curcumin, so that's the anti-inflammatory ingredient in our turmeric, we can increase the absorption by our body of the curcumin when we add black pepper. So just normal black pepper you have at home, tiny little bit. When we make, for example, smoothie or whatever, what is maybe you expect that is not sweet, you will normally put black pepper when you do like curry, isn't it? So that's kind of normal thing that you have there, and you absorb more curcumin. But if we do smoothie, that's the reason that the ingredient is there. And I know from my experience that people sometimes skip this black pepper. And it's like, oh, what, black pepper? And there's pineapple as well. So please try the smoothie as taste really good. And if you get fresh ginger, that's the taste is even better. And so ginger, you can buy as well dry in the shop. So if you can't find raw ginger, as you can see now on the picture, which most of the shops will have at the moment, you can still use the powder. So ginger on all the yellow foods also protect us not only in they're not only anti-inflammatory, but also they are antibacterial. So it's really worth it to combine. As you can see already, we are going to the third color, and there are some products which is very important to use. And some phytonutrients in yellow foods include lutein or rutin. So they are both carotenoids, and they are fat soluble. So it's really important if we add as well some oil. We're going to talk about rainbow, but at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about seeds. And as you remember from the last week that we talked about healthy oils, that was omega-3 fatty acids and fish and some like olive oil. So even if another example from the recipe book, there is a smoothie which contains olive oil. And even if you use extra virgin olive oil, you won't feel the flavor of it if you combine, for example, with ginger. Ginger is very strong. So please don't skip the ingredients which are there. Then we have green foods. I know most of people is like, oh, green. They are like almost scared of these green foods. I don't know why, but yeah, they have different flavor, and obviously they are strong. Some of the leaves are very, very strong, and like if you have small stalk of broccoli, you don't need to cook them very long. But if you have the whole big, like the broccoli tree, this kind of little broccoli branches, then needs little bit longer time in cooking. However, I also see that sometimes people just overcook and then the broccoli is not tender. We don't need to cook broccoli for a long period of time until it's mushy. We should actually cook maximum 7 up to 6-7 minutes. And you will see when you have, for example, broccoli on the pan, or if you on the pan when you cook with the vapor, it's a good way to cook vegetables this way, because they cook very, very quickly. So the vapor has much more temperature. You know that when the water evaporates, it's 100 degrees Celsius. And then if you put things in the pot, that's a little bit different temperature there. So if you cooked with the vapor, it's taking shorter. And the color of the broccoli will be like a kind of highlights color. So this is the color which we really want. And cruciferous vegetables, so like broccoli or cabbage, Brussels sprouts. Ooh, now the season of Brussels sprouts. Yeah, Christmas. They have all the properties anti-cancerogenic. So very important. And some of them, they contain sulfur compound, which is helping our liver to do all the job overnight when we need to eliminate the toxins. So they contain huge level of vitamin B. They are very important for our energy productions, and they contain chlorophyll, which that gives them the green color. So that's super powerful, and folate, and the same phenols. So it's very important to include those vegetables in our diet. And there is another smoothie which contains spinach. And the smoothie is called chocolate smoothie. So we have a little bit of spinach there, but we have a cocoa powder, and we have banana and some nut butter. So it's up to you if you want to use peanut butter or almond butter. But if you add spinach there and you are not kind of fan of spinach, you will see that you won't feel it. You won't taste spinach at all in the smoothie. So if you are a kind of person who not necessarily like these green foods, doing smoothies is a perfect way to introduce more foods into your diet, little by little, and don't even feel the flavor of it. And the most powerful, I would say, foods which contain amazing amounts of antioxidants and phytonutrients are this category, which we have like 4 colors together, which is blue, purple, and black. And here on the pictures, you can see they're not berries, they are beans this time. Like, we know already a lot about berries, and I talked last week. So yes, all foods which have this outlier, which is black or red or dark color, it's very powerful. It's this color. Actually, it's because the anthocyanins and they have resveratrol as well. So very, very powerful as antioxidants here, anti-inflammatory. And it's easy to use, you know, so you can get to the shop and instead of buying your normal tin of white beans, cannellini beans or like butter beans, just get there and get 1 tin of black beans or the turtle beans. Also, if you have Asian shop around you, or you can go like all around the world, aisles in the shop, you will find different colors of beans when you can buy them dry. And if you soak the beans overnight, they will cook very quickly the next day. You can freeze the beans. You can even freeze the beans when they are soaked, and they will cook very, very quickly in the next day if they were soaked previously and they were in the freezer, so you can save the time. Sometimes the food, which if you try new foods and you get, for example, beans from the tin, they may not taste exactly the same. When we start, you know, introducing new foods and it's more fresh, the flavor will be better. So I will always recommend to actually cook the beans instead of buying them from the tin. They are also very, very mushy from the tins. And you can avoid the metal transfer as well. So another, you can think now, if you can guess, what is the next color? We had purple, we have red, we have blue, we had yellow, orange, and red. Anything in our, maybe it's not rainbow, okay? Well, I'm just going to come back to the beetroot. So we have white, tan, and brown. This is what is left, but it's not the last. It's very important to add the whole grains to all of this. As we talk about these colors, which is red, orange, the rainbow colors, we are more familiar to talk about fruits and vegetables. But when we talk about white, tan, and brown colors, then we more focus about the whole grains. So this is our fiber. This is the fiber. This is the point actually to feel more full when we eat. Yeah, because when we create just a salad, let's say, or just soup, which is made of vegetables, then after 2 hours, after 1 hour, we will feel, I am hungry. I want to eat a little bit more. So if we now will focus about the colorful and the strategy of our meals by introducing different type of whole grains, like legumes, like seeds, like beans, then we can make sure that we are having this between 35 or 40 grams of fiber. And to be honest, you will have even more than 40. It's very easy on the plant-based diet to go much more than 40. And then that keeps you regular, you feel better, and you feel fuller. And when you feel fuller, then you don't think about grabbing a brownie in the afternoon. So all these whole grains, what they actually do, yes, they are some whole grains. When we talk about legumes, they contain proteins. So then we don't need to focus that much on, for example, chicken or beef or any other meats which are they don't have anti-inflammatory properties. Flax seeds, it's amazing in terms of properties, digestive properties, especially for people who are not regular and they have any digestive problems. So the flax seeds are here in the brown set, in the brown color. When I'm going to back to the beetroot, because it's one of the vegetables which as well I feel that people maybe aren't used to eat much. The beetroot, as we know, that is from these dark colors, that's the dark group, is very strong antioxidants and has anti-inflammatory properties. Beetroot is maybe difficult to use because it's very hard as a root, and maybe not everyone has the chopper or has enough even energy to shred the beetroot. So if you would like to eat beetroot raw and you don't feel like shredding it into your salad, you could get like a chopper or food processor when you just put whole beetroots there and can be chopped very easily. But you can also use beetroot, which is cooked. And in most of the supermarkets, you can get the beetroot cooked and you can add to your smoothie. So there is another smoothie in the booklet, which is called brain smoothie and contain beetroot. The beetroot can be raw or cooked. It depends what kind of blender you have. And we have also walnuts there, blueberries, blackberries, so all the set. If you feel that the smoothie is not sweet enough, don't add sugar there. You can just also use banana. So banana is really good ingredient to use for the smoothie as sweetener. And that was amazing study, which was published in a journal of Human for Hypertension. And actually people who ate beetroots and drank the beetroot juice, and we always do the beetroot juice with a little bit of lemon because the beetroot is high in iron, and iron from plants is better absorbed when we add vitamin C to it. And we know that the inflammatory markers, when the proteins CRP went down after drinking the beetroot juice. So it's not only color, which we talk about anti-inflammatory, but actually there are studies to confirm that we can decrease the inflammation in our body, you know? So this is a kind of an example, which I'm not talking about anything special. It's just beetroot. It's beetroot there sitting in the shelf in Lidl or Tesco, waiting for you and say, take me, take me. So yeah, so the rainbow finished, the rainbow is done. Now the question for you is, how often do you eat the rainbow? How often? How look your plate? How many colors are on your plate? Because if we don't focus on our shopping, or we will continuously doing the same things every single day, we won't even ask ourselves if I had berries today, or if I had red pepper, or what kind of color, you know, I can add to my meals. But if I would like to improve my health, the first thing what I would like to do is to eat the rainbow. As you can see already, that most of the foods, they have anti-inflammatory properties. And this slide, just repetition from the last week to add here to our Mediterranean diet, talking about oily fish and seeds, which are highly in omega-3 fatty acids. So there are specific fishes what we would like to add to our diet. And just to answer your question, what fish should I buy? So all the fishes which are coming from the cold water, that include tuna, sardines, mackerel, and salmon. And from the plants, we have flax seeds, walnuts, and chia seeds. All these three seeds, I'm sorry, I need to swallow some water. All the seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, and chia seeds, I highly recommend to have at home. You can use it with your breakfast if you do like your porridge, or add to your smoothie. Walnuts are having a brown skin, as you may know, the same as almonds, and they may be a little bit bitter. If you don't like walnuts, or because they are too crunchy, or because they are bitter, I recommend you to soak them overnight in water. And you will just rinse them in the morning, so get rid of the water, rinse them in the morning, and you will feel the difference that the walnut or almond, they will be much sweeter and also easier to digest and easier to crunch, easier to eat, especially if you feel that you don't like crunchy foods. So all this stuff, what you can see here all around, is a kind of making the whole set of the rainbow fulfill. So we have avocado, which is high in omega-3 fatty acids as well. We have here walnuts, we have hazelnuts, chia seeds, and flax seeds, and olive oil. And I prepare for you an example. It's a menu for the day. It's just an example to little bit understand more about how I can eat if I want to eat, taking consideration, for example, 3 main meals. But if I'm snacking, if I'm a person who maybe can't eat big meals or need very small portions and prefer and stabilize the blood sugar and want to eat maybe every 3 hours, having healthy snacks, like for example, anti-inflammatory smoothie, or like 1 avocado, or even this our lovely unicorn hummus with carrot or cucumber. We have 3 main meals, but the snacks are around. So if you try to avoid snacking on something which is very unhealthy, you need to make sure that you will prepare actually your snack for the day. And some people like to keep intermittent fasting, keep the time on restricted eating, for example, having 12 hours between our last meal and the first meal, and 12 hours is minimum for the healthy liver and for the detoxification. But Deepak will tell you a little bit more about today, about the fasting. So some people who may skip the breakfast or may keep the breakfast, warm porridge, especially warm food in the morning, is really good for kind of saying good morning to our organs. Very popular from the Chinese medicine is to have a glass of very warm water as soon as I wake up. It's not the kind of water which you can easily drink 1 glass. It's very warm water that you can take small sips, that you feel that it's like kind of warm going through your throat. So if you start the day with warm water, then you help to flush the toxins as well after the night. And the porridge is an idea. Most people like the creamy, warm porridge, and it's good because it's plain flavor. You can add so many things to it. So you can start to build your rainbow. For example, adding some blueberries, strong antioxidants there, some flax seeds and turmeric and cinnamon here will work really, really well. You can use powders or you can use fresh turmeric. And cinnamon normally will be in powder. So if we set our breakfast for the warm meal, then we can have anti-inflammatory smoothie for snack, and the lunch, it will contain the best example here for the vegetables are salads, because raw food sometimes get longer period to digest than, for example, cooked vegetables, which are easier to digest, and then they are ideal for dinner. So lunch, we can add some oily fish here together and made lovely dressing. Also today, Ian will show you our mustard tahini dressing or peanuts dressing. I don't know which one you want to choose, but there are some lovely dressings to add, which are not dressings with the processed oils, which you can find in the shop. And if you feel that the salads with fish is not satisfying you, or you feel like you would like to have some snack, 1 ripe avocado is great, and you can build up still your omega-3 fatty acids here. And for dinners, we are looking for something which is cooked. Stew now for winter, or soups are brilliant with lentils or black beans, or like chickpeas, like looking for more plant proteins. The most important thing, if we are talking about digestion, it's how we drink water. I see that sometimes people drink almost 1 glass or even more water during their meal, but actually it's not helping at all to improve our digestion, because we dilute the digestive enzymes. And if we keep drinking lots of water during our meals, then we slow down the metabolism. So if you, a kind of thirsty person, drink water before and around 1 hour after your meal, to make sure that your digestive enzymes are not diluted. And the herbal teas are really good between the meals or after. I'm going to check the time. I have a few minutes to share a little bit about the supplements, which I'm not going to talk much, because you need to consult with your doctor or with a professional, especially if you are taking medication. So there are some ideas for people who struggle with the pain and with the chronic pain, because they would like to lower their inflammation. And there are some supplements which I can recommend. However, as in the previous slides, please make sure that you can contact a professional about this. So there are a few supplements you can find the same structure of this compound in the foods, which are, for example, the curcumin. You can find in turmeric. There is the name of the phytonutrients, so it's all strong antioxidants, which contain lycopene. That's what we talk about: tomatoes, green tea, and quercetin. And then glutathione is another very strong antioxidant, which helps with the energy production. Most of people have not sufficient omega-3 fatty acids in their body, so we will recommend to supplement omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B12, which helps with the energy production, and generally vitamin B complex, vitamin D, which is one of the most important vitamins, and this is the vitamin which you should probably get or from your GP or get from the counter, because this is a supplement we should take whole year around. And magnesium, which helps to relax our body and improve our sleep. And the cytobiotic is just here an idea if you would like to use the code, which is here on the right side. That's the Sunbiotic, which helps you to increase your good bacteria in your gut and feed them at the same time. So I asked Louise before if she's okay, I can help you with your first step, at least maybe to get vitamin D. If you are not taking it, and it's very important for your immune system, you can get 35% discount if you use the code at the end in your shopping. So this is all. This is me. And there are a few tips which I hope that after today you will, get it. You will think about the rainbow. You will think about the colors, what is on your plate, because this is all very important, not only for your energy, but also for your mental health, for your pain. And if that will go and you will think positive, especially when we can increase our positivity, our thoughts, and also we can increase the time when we smile during the day, we'll all produce endorphins, because when we smile, we produce endorphins, we talk to people, and we have fun, especially now in the festive season. Then we can start to work on our new habits in January. Well, not January, can start tomorrow, but getting slowly, step by step, what kind of things I would like to improve, and with big love to yourself, which will help you to stay on track. So hopefully you like it. You like it today, and this is my contact if somebody would like to contact me. And I will stop to share the screen, and I will let Deepak. Okay, where is now? Stop.
Alicia, would you like to show the hummus video before we move on?
Yeah, we can go for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do we want to maybe have a bit of a 4 or 5 minute stretch after the video, probably, Louise?
Yeah, that's a good idea, Deepak, and then we can carry on after that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll show the video and then have a 5-minute break. Just bear with me while I get it ready.
Hi, it's Ian here, Mr. Cookfulness. I'm now going to make one of Alicia's amazing hummus recipes. This is beetroot hummus, which I've never made before, and I'm really looking forward to trying it. So, let's see how we get on with this one. You ready, little miss?
Yes.
Good. Right, let's go. So, in goes a can of chickpeas and some water. Now, I've left some of the aqua, I don't know how you say it, aqua water in there, because you need about 5 tablespoons of which is in. Chickpeas in. What's next?
Yep. Then you
Is it beetroot?
wrap beet tightly
Yeah.
in aluminum foil
Yeah.
and
So
roast for 30
you can
minutes.
roast some beetroot, which I've already got. So this is just shop bought beetroot that's been already roasted. So is that all right? Thank you. So let's get to chucking it into the old whizzeroo.
Okay. Then peel and add the garlic.
Garlic. So I've got a ready, these are great actually, you get these in the jars now, of cloves of garlic in oil, really handy. It's in.
And add the tahini.
Tahini, 2 tablespoons of tahini. Yeah. Okay, what's after the tahini?
Zest the lemon and squeeze the lemon.
Okay, so I have already zested the lemon, half a lemon, into my active hand zester. So I'll just put that in there. And then the juice as well.
Yes.
Juice as well, so let's give that a little half a lemony. That goes in. Okay. What's next?
And then add aquafaba.
Water's in, got that in. Chickpea water.
Right.
Yeah.
Season with a pinch of salt, cumin, paprika.
Pinch of salt. We've even gone for the right salt, Himalayan. Thank you very much, Alicia. Cumin. Bit of cumin, I like cumin. I do. Probably a bit much, but hey ho. And I've gone for a little bit of smoked paprika because I just want to see what that's like. Thank you, come.
Just
Okay.
take a while to get out.
And then what? Wizzy wizzy?
Yep.
Okay, let's go. So just halfway through, just give it a little prod about. And if you think it's sort of a bit dry, add a bit more lemon juice or some of the water. And we'll go again. Give that a good now that's doing. For some reason my beetroot doesn't want to break up.
It
That's all
does
right.
say if you want to, you can have a taste.
Can I?
Yes.
Oh yeah, thank you.
And see if it needs more beetroot or more lemon.
Do you know what it needs? A bit of salt. And maybe a little more lemon juice. Thank you for that tip,
You're welcome.
little miss. And there we have the most amazing beetroot hummus. And that in the fridge with some carrot sticks or some nice lettuce, actually, on some crisp lettuce would be lovely. there
It
you
does say if you want, you can put lemon zest on the top as decoration.
Oh, can we? Oh, should we do that?
Yes.
Okay then. Thank you. Right, let's get this fella back on. Get it to work. There we go. Actually, I'll tell you what, you'll do this one. So let's do some lemon zest. There. Beetroot hummus with lemon zest on top. Alicia, it's amazing.
Okay, if we have a 5-minute stretch break now, what is it, 5:02, and come back at 8 o'clock. I'll turn it over to you and we'll show one of the dressings at the end before we go into the Q&A. And I did ask people to vote for which one they wanted to see, the mustard or the peanut. I think so far the peanut's winning, but we will put both of them on the website. Thank you, Deepak. Over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And can you see the screen?
We can, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, then. Excellent. Right. Welcome back, all of you. I hope you had a bit of a stretch and you really enjoyed the second part, first half of the second part of our Painless Nutrition series there. And many thanks to Alicia for really making that very appetizing. I'm now really hungry and I want to get back to dinner. So I won't keep you waiting too long, but hopefully over the last sort of 2 sessions, we've given you a flavor and, no pun intended, of the role that nutrition has in pain. For this part of the talk, what I'm going to be hopefully focusing on is really focusing on putting it in context. Nutrition is still one part of the puzzle that we have in terms of managing something as complex as pain. And,
Deepak, could
sorry.
you make it bigger for us? Can you put it in presentation mode, maybe?
Oh, I have it on presentation mode in my screen here. Strange. Alicia, can you see this now?
Yeah, I think it's...
And hold on, just going to change it now. Is that coming in big screen?
Yes, that's better. That's lovely. Thank you.
Better? And can you see this now?
Yes, that's
Yes.
great.
Okay, good. So yeah, where was this? As a pain physician, I've really found that actually understanding about nutrition has made a lot of sort of relevance to me in terms of how I help patients. And I have another strategy to give rather than just focusing on medications or interventions. And I think taking all of those aspects, including nutrition, is important. But within nutrition itself, there are so many aspects. As you heard from Alicia today itself, there can be so much variety, and there are so many things coming up in nutrition. And I've seen on the chat box as well the kind of questions and the reactions, and sometimes the various influences that some foods have on some things there, especially turmeric and omeprazole. And these are things I'll go into the question here. But my interest then, I had to actually, this is not something your pain clinic or most GPs will learn or do during their medical training. Nutrition is hardly covered, much like pain. And a lot of your GP practitioners or even colleagues like myself will have to have done extra work there. So both me and Alicia are members of the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine, and I've done a little bit of an extra course at the University of Winchester on plant-based diets, just to be more comfortable in what I talk about nutrition to my patients there. Last week, we covered just the interest into the reason why nutrition has become so important in pain because of the microbiome. Now, in a short lecture, I won't take too much time. I'm just going to mention about some of the supplements, but Alicia has covered a lot of them. So actually, she's made a good menu plan as well. So I'm going to put into perspective the scientific reason, the background to why you should pay attention to these kind of supplements, and probably a little bit of understanding of why the anti-inflammatory diet has taken off. Last week, we did talk about some of these aspects of the anti-inflammatory diet. I'll just revise them short, and I think it won't hurt for many people because of the amount of information you heard last time and this time. Maybe a little bit of revision wouldn't be a bad idea there. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about the scientific basis of why fasting and fasting diets have become such a fad these days. We've covered the reason why we are so interested in nutrition, because your gut is essentially a second brain. It's also a hugely important immune organ, and it is also a hugely important sensory organ. So it senses a lot of the information that's outside, meaning the bacteria that are on the outer lining of the wall there. And it secretes a lot of molecules there, and it's massive. It's almost as big as a basketball court when you spread it out. So it's a large surface area that, along with your vagus nerve and the brain, together forms a supercomputer that actually makes a lot of decisions about how you behave, how you respond to various stimuli, various sensations that you receive during any given day. And the reason nutrition has become so important is that if your nutrition is poor, we found that if your food is high in ultra processed foods, if it is more sugary, if there are lots of fizzy drinks, then what happens is it increases the overall amount of sensitivity of the immune system, which I told you the gut is the large immune organ. And that immune system activation changes some of the gut microbes there. It reduces the diversity of the microbes and the microorganisms in there. And that causes a sensitivity of the nervous system through the vagus. That sensitivity and inflammation spreads through the vagus into the central nervous system, and in fact, many areas of the brain, which is why in painful conditions like fibromyalgia, there are a lot of patients who have got irritable bowel syndrome, and they also find themselves having that concentration and fibro fog. And we think that all of those things are linked together because of the low-grade neuroinflammation that occurs because of the lack of diversity in the bacteria. So this overall process of low-grade neuroinflammation is what we are calling as central sensitization. And you might say, oh, it's inflammation like the way you think of it in your bloodstream, but it isn't. It's a much more subtle kind of change, and it's driven by one particular kind of immune cell that becomes really active, and I'll talk about it a little later. And that immune cell becoming overactive causes a little bit of a damage or change in the lining of the nerves that are there in the spinal cord and in the brain, something that you really can't see on a scan or anything like that, but most importantly, something that is actually reversible. So if you can bring about some changes starting at the nutrition level, you probably can make a change into how these immune cells behave within the brain and within the nervous system. And that's where chronic pain and the microbiome became such a big important topic, because you can have an irregular bowel function and microorganisms, and that can actually cause this leaky gut and cause chronic pain. So that is why I talked about the tips last week about this anti-inflammatory reducing there. But let me go into that a little bit more. Actually, what does it mean? Alicia talked to you about what constitutes an anti-inflammatory diet, what are the different colors of the rainbow diet, and what you should be thinking of as an example menu plan. But what are the foods that you really want to be stopping? Well, we want to, first of all, the anti-inflammatory diet is not just about having the anti-inflammatory component itself, all those foods that Alicia talked about, but it's also actively trying to reduce some of the pro-inflammatory stuff that you're taking. What does that mean? We think about carbohydrates. Now, some carbohydrates are definitely healthy, but generally you're thinking about inflammatory carbohydrates are those that are processed and refined. So so potatoes by themselves are not going to be an inflammatory carbohydrate, but once you go into a shop and buy something that has been processed from what its ground state is, or it's refined using some form of different preparation, then you make it an inflammatory carbohydrate. That will actually provoke the immune system. One way of knowing about this is something called as the glycemic index, so GI factor of most foods. Now, all foods will have a GI factor that's there, and I'm going to show you a very useful slide which will give you the GI factor of every food there. And what the GI factor or the glycemic index is essentially how any carbohydrate will influence the blood sugar levels. Now, anything that is less than 55 means that it's more slowly digested and it's not going to ramp up and down the sugar levels all over the place. But if you go for anything more than 65 or 70, we generally think that that can contribute to up and down blood sugar level and contribute to inflammation. So you want to reduce foods that are higher than 65 or 70 on the GI scale. What that means in terms of actual sugars a day as well is they have this concept of free sugars. Now, free sugars are, you may have some sweet things like honey, like we spoke about last week, or you may have some naturally sweet berries. So fruits and vegetables that are naturally sweet have got some inbuilt sugars in them. That's not the problem. But when you add a free sugar, something that you add an extra amount of sugar, what is generally recommended is not more than 6 to 8 teaspoons a day. That's quite a small amount of sugar compared to what we normally have. There are some studies that have been shown when you just go through a normal day for an average person and you look at all the hidden sugars that are there. For example, you have ketchup. You'd never think of ketchup as having sugar, but it does have spoons of sugar in. Obviously, you think of Coke as having sugar, but when they totaled up the average amount of sugar that people have, sometimes people have 23 to 30 teaspoons of sugar in a given day, and they may actually not be having sugar in its purest form as they see it, but it will be hidden in all the other processed foods that they're having. So this is something to be aware of. And what our suggestion is that try to reduce that by at least 10% at a time. Going cold turkey is quite difficult if you're having that kind of sugar eating per day. So trying to go cold turkey is important there. Further inflammatory foods, obviously anything that you process is going to start ramping up inflammation. So think of the foods that you have. If you don't recognize the ground state from which it comes through, that is what is called unprocessed foods. And if you start thinking it's been in a sort of supermarket ale, then you are looking at a processed foods, and recognize that that is going to contribute to some inflammation. Fats, there is a problem. Now, there are some healthy fats, but what's all with this omega-3 that Alicia mentioned, and then you might have heard of omega-6. But what has happened is that we normally will need a healthy ratio of 1:1 of omega-3 to omega-6. But what happens is when you start having these processed foods, they add in more and more omega-6. Now, once you go beyond the ratio that you have 25 times of omega-6 compared to just the one portion of omega-3, that imbalance is what makes some fats more inflammatory. And that is what is going to cause, again, a pro-inflammatory component there. Similarly, you have gluten and people who are intolerant to dairy. They all will be instances and examples of where somebody taking a slightly gluten-rich food or having a bit of dairy will provoke the immune system. So the intolerance that you have is actually the immune system going hyperactive, and it's already hypersensitive. So it just fires off, releasing these chemicals that go on to the vagus, into the brain, and to the rest of the circulation. And that's where you can have the itches, the hives, the skin changes, or the other changes that you see with gluten or dairy intolerance there. Now, carbonated drinks are particularly high in one kind of, you have the sugar content, but you have the other one is the polyamines, which are also supposed to be toxic and inflammatory. So that's another reason why carbonated or fizzy drinks are to be reduced or definitely looked at when you are going to embrace an anti-inflammatory diet. This is what you want to reduce there. There are a few other excitotoxic, meaning things that excite your immune system and make it more hyperactive. So these are high fructose corn syrup, which is often there in a lot of cereals and other preparations. And some kinds of like MSG will have glutamate, or aspartame will have some, so sweeteners may have aspartame. And that is why these have also become a little unpopular these days in terms of inflammation. This is the website I want to suggest. If some of you have already heard it as part of your diabetes management, then that's good. But for those of you who don't have diabetes as well, this particular website called Public Health Collaboration/Sugar is really good because it focuses on the work done by one really good GP called David Unwin. He is based up north near Manchester, I think. And what he's done is he's taken the painstaking aim of going through every food stuff that you have, and he's actually quantified it and has got nice pictures in terms of how many spoons of sugar does it actually mean and what the glycemic index is. So have a look at that and see what your diet is, and see if you can move from there into foods that have a low GI index less than 55, and see if you can add those into your diet itself. So that's what I want to talk about, sort of the reducing of the pro-inflammatory diets. That's a necessary component of the overall anti-inflammatory plan. So it's not just about adding the foods in, but it also what it is that you can reduce more of. The next steps, a lot of people have asked me last time, and I got a few questions later on as well, is around what is the connection between obesity and pain? What's that got to do with each other there? And there is a relationship, but it's not what you think. It's not what we think of as, okay, if somebody is heavy, they put a lot of mechanical load on the body, and the joint or the back or the hip or the knee is struggling with that weight, and that causes more arthritis. That used to be old explanation, and to a certain extent there is a little bit of truth in it, that there is a mechanical load component, but we now understand that within obesity itself, it's the change in what happens when somebody is obese. And that obesity doesn't have to be that they are large and they have a large BMI. So you don't have to have a large BMI to be necessarily obese. You can actually be what people are now calling as the TOFI. You can be thin on the outside, but fat on the inside. And by that, I mean that you can have a lot of these fat cells in and around your intestine and your gut. And that kind of hidden fat is actually a major problem. And they actually think, if you Google a person called Robert Lustig, Lustig. He's an endocrinologist out in the US, and he's had this really good talks where he talks about this population of people who are supposedly thin but have diabetes, who are supposedly have a normal BMI but are having autoimmune conditions and inflammation and other things happening. And what we are now understanding is that some people who are obese, but those people who have a lot of inside fat around the intestine themselves will have increased inflammation, because the fat cell is pouring out lots of inflammatory chemicals. So on the left side here on the diagram that you see, this is a whole body MRI scan of people who are almost the same. They have the same age, they are of the same sex, they are having the same BMI, but what they have is a different level of internal fat. And that entirely changes how they are prone to inflammatory conditions like diabetes or other autoimmune conditions and other risks that is present there. So the fat cell is a problem, especially when it is on the inside. So something to remember about it, that it's not just about mechanical loads or reduced blood flow. It's also about the fact that fat itself is a pro-inflammatory substance. And that's another reason to think of adopting that healthy lifestyle, because it's often difficult for people. We don't have routine imaging or scanning to know what the internal fat necessarily is. And this is where I just want to mention, I think Tim asked this question about the immune cell and the inflammation. They're very tightly linked together, Tim. And for those of you others who have seen that question there, the immune cell and the nervous system, for all practical purposes, are joined at the hip. And one particular cell among them stands really tall, is this particular cell called the microglia. These are representatives of the immune system, and they travel from the immune system around the gut into the brain and spinal cord, where they live almost a whole of the lifetime. And they have as yet undiscovered completely clear connections and memory with the rest of the immune system in the body. And so therefore they can mimic the inflammation and problems that happen in the rest of the body within the brain and the nervous system. And when they get mad, so actually they are like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They are normally very nice, they are nourishing, they look after the nerves around them, they support them, they mother them, and they nurture them. But when they start to experience stress of any kind, whether that's physical stress, emotional stress, infection, surgery, abuse, doesn't matter. To them, they have surveillance cameras on them. I'm just making this as an analogy, but what they have are receptors which are on the lookout for any kind of stress. It doesn't mean that, and they cannot differentiate between an emotional stress or a physical stress or abuse or divorce or separation or infection or surgery. For them, that stress is going to trigger a response which will mean they could turn out into a Mr. Hyde. And at that point, they go mad. They don't understand what they're doing, and they go about causing damage to the cells around them and become inflamed and throw out a whole lot of chemicals. So the whole good thing is with nutrition, we can actually get back these microglia to reversibly go back to becoming normal again, and then they will bring about the nurturing and healing. So that's where the research is at right now, and that's why nutrition's become so important, because you have one very tangible, less side effect way of calming inflammation and calming the immune system down as well. People talk about prebiotics and probiotics. Essentially, in one single word, if I have to finish that, probiotics are essentially a live bacteria that are given to you, but prebiotics are essentially food that is given to particular kinds of bacteria. And one particular bacteria which is exciting all the nutrition people out there is something called Akkermansia. They have discovered this bacteria which apparently needs these fermented vegetables and plant-based foods to live and to grow and nourish. And what that Akkermansia does is actually provides the lining of mucus on top of your intestinal lining. And essentially, if you think of your intestinal lining as a picket fence, this is the essential lubricant. It's a nice, proper shrub that protects the whole picket fence lining at that level there. And when you eat a prebiotic, you're nourishing the growth of those bacteria and nourishing more mucus to form there. So that's where all the supplements and phytonutrients that Alicia spoke about came. All of these are essentially going to be working to improve the condition and tone of your immune system, of the lining of the intestine. And this is where we are becoming more interested in this concept of fasting. Because what they have found is that when you do give time for your intestine to clean itself up, when you give time for the prebiotics that you've had or the food that you've had to nourish and grow these bacterial organisms and give the lining back again, give it time, then you are almost making sure that your gut is able to do its MOT. Think of it as the same way as we go into a hotel room. You have checkout time at 11, you have check-in time at 3. That's those 3 or 4 hours that you need to give to any hotel room to actually do their cleaning and make it look good. If you're going to never give that opportunity for the hotel staff to do their job, then you are going to obviously come back to something that's going to progressively be filthy, smelly, or less completely done. And that has a downstream problem on your health. And that's what fasting does, gives that gap and time and allows your intestinal clock, as it were, to synchronize with the main sleep master clock in your brain. And that synchronization is what makes it possible for the body itself to do its job of reducing inflammation. So it's not just that the diet that you have there, but it's also the things that you do around it to facilitate the diet working. And that's why intermittent fasting and the guys who did the work on it have really gone deep into it. And they say that even if you start with 12 hours, which is possible to do if you finish your meal at 6:37 in the evening, you can go on to the next morning, that's 12 hours done. You can still have water, green tea or black tea in between, but then you can just go for another 2-3 hours, slightly later breakfast, go to 11 o'clock, and you're sorted in terms of how much time you've given for your intestine to get healthy. Sometimes it's useful to do this with friends, and generally with nutrition itself, that's where the whole social component comes, because you can start to reduce inflammation that way. So my whole overall final thoughts for the anti-inflammatory diet, you've heard what Alicia said in terms of what you can add in. I hope I've given you some food for thought in terms of what you can reduce and why you want to reduce it. And in this context, it's not all these various diets that you think about there, but it's the principles of the anti-inflammatory diet, the whole thing that Alicia mentioned. And what you want to understand is that behind all these fads of the keto diet and these diet and the paleo diet, what you're trying to do is you're trying to give your body that time to recover, and you're trying to make sure that you are growing the pets that you have in the right way possible with the right kind of food at the right time. I'm not going to say anything more in here, just to again preface that nutrition is really important as a cleaner way of giving you pain relief. So consider this, and I hope that you really enjoyed these 2 episodes that we've done over the last 2 weeks with Live Well with Pain and the Footsteps Festival. So thank you so much for having us, and open to questions now.
Thank you very much, Deepak. That was really fascinating. I think given the time, we may not show the second video. We'll let people watch it on the website, if that's okay, and we'll go straight into questions. I wonder, Matthew, Anne, or Nikki, if there's a particular question you've spotted that you'd like to raise.
There aren't too many questions.
I think there was one that I remember about somebody asking on the previous talk around turmeric and omeprazole, and that person is right, actually. I mean, I have a lot of patients who are on omeprazole and some painkillers, and they can have Indian foods very comfortably where there is a small amount of turmeric. But when you're taking supplements, you are right, higher doses of supplements can interact and increase the amount of gastric acid, so it counters the effect of omeprazole. So the general advice is omeprazole, famotidine, ranitidine, all these kind of stomach acid blockers should be preferably avoided, or you reduce the amount of turmeric you have, or you see if you can reduce the drug dosage that you have. So that's the general recommendation I tell patients.
There's another question there from Kate. How does all this work with the low FODMAP diet? I have IBS and have great relief following the LF diet.
Yeah, I think the low FODMAP diet is fine, because if you think about it, you're going to have oligodisaccharides. So you're having a small amount of, now all of a sudden the entire expansion of the FODMAP is gone out of my head now. But all of those saccharides that you're trying to reduce in low amounts, they are all contributing to some level of inflammation, which is why you go for the FODMAP component and you make it low, because they are supposed to be the processed forms of carbohydrates that can contribute to inflammation or provoke the immune system or the nervous system at that level. So it's not surprising that you find it beneficial. And that's why of all some of the diets, FODMAP has stood the test of time. It's also available on the NHS. Lots of dietitians talk about it there, but that's where it mentions there. Alicia, do you have any thoughts about the FODMAP diet particularly?
You're muted, Alicia.
Yeah, the first thing is to ask what is the cause of IBS. So irritable bowel syndrome is not just because we're born with it, and it's slowly actually changing the diet and see what can work for us. And just a kind of treatment, we use low FODMAP diet, which are the products basically what they don't fermentate. Okay, so we don't want to feed this bacteria, which we know that there is this balance. This is what Deepak said. But for me, from the perspective of functional medicine, we are looking for a little bit deeper, and we would like to test the microbiome. We would like to check what is there inside. We would like to take the stool sample, send it to the lab, see what kind of microbes are there, what kind of bacteria are sitting there, if they're opportunistic bacteria, if there is Klebsiella, or if maybe there is fungal infection, maybe there is overgrowth of Candida. So there are so many different bacteria which can grow, which can overgrow in our gut, in the large intestine, and they can cause a big issue. And if we keep eating all this, processed food or just foods which are not on the low FODMAP diet, and we keep feeding them, and they produce toxins. So it's not only to follow low FODMAP diet forever. It's not the answer, because it's very difficult. Yeah, so we are actually need to be restricted for the whole period of time, and we all know how is when we are restricting us too much, then we are having the day when we eat everything what we can't eat. So it's not the answer here. I would rather go to a professional check and see what is going on in my gut and who is sitting there and what is doing if I have this IBS.
Okay.
Thanks, Alicia.
There's another few questions, but this is another one that might be a little advanced. From Susie. I suffer from Crohn's and she finds that hummus and beetroot soup upsets her stomach. If these foods are anti-inflammatory, then why do they upset her stomach? Might not be an easy one to.
No,
I can.
Go on, Alicia.
Okay, well, basically, is this? I think this is kind of boring answer, but this is all about the microbes. Yeah. So if we actually can't digest something, especially if we talk about plants, that means that we don't have enough pets or enough variety of pets in our gut, and they can't actually eat it, so they can't help us to digest. This is all about this food what fermentates. If the food fermentates, and that's basically the plant, something what human body can't digest. We have digestive enzymes. We break down the nutrients, but some things like, for example, the fiber, which is not dissolved in water, we can't. It's like kind of making a glue inside, and the walls of the plants, the bacteria eat them. So we feed them. If we don't have enough those bacteria, then we actually cause much more fermentation. And if the other bacteria, which are the opportunistic bacteria, we call them, they start to eat all these fibers, like to make a party there, they create a lot of gas. So they party, they breathe, they produce toxins. The coating of the bacteria is passing through the leaky gut. That's kind of interactive for our brain as well. But it's all the same story when we start to eat, for example, raw vegetables. Yeah. So this is what Deepak said about the one bacteria, which is amazing for everybody, Akkermansia municiphala. She bacteria, finish on A, don't know if you call it she or it. This bacteria, it's unbelievable because can fermentate the green foods, but how we can have it? When we do the test, when we check, so I work with Genova Diagnostic, it's an amazing lab, we can test human microbiome, we can see what is sitting there, and we can see what kind of bacteria we have. Very often I found out that people have not enough Akkermansia municiphala there, and that's the problem that I can see, that they don't eat enough raw foods. So we can't grow this bacteria, she can't work there, she can't help us to fermentate because we don't have enough of it. And that's the problem if we don't eat enough raw. So starting very slowly, and yeah, maybe probiotics can help, maybe the low food map diet will help. It is very individual, so it's not only it's Crohn is an autoimmune disease, so it's not very easy, like for example IBS, okay, or leaky gut is an autoimmune disease which is happening in your gut. So your body, you need to listen a lot, and a lot of tests needs to be done to read the symptoms, because the action what your body is taking is to protect you. Yeah, so that's the pain. So every single thing, so the diet which we actually help and adjust for Crohn's disease is very individual, with a lot of tests to read the symptoms basically. So it's not really easy to answer this. What hummus? No. Well, obviously, if that affects you, then you won't take hummus. But step by step, trying slowly different plants and see how you can make different varieties, how to add different colors to your diet. And in this case, sometimes supplements works pretty good, because people may not take, for example, garlic in their foods, but if they take allicin, which is the active compound in the garlic, the antibacterial, and some people have overgrowth of bacteria can use the supplements in this way. The same like curcumin. They can't eat turmeric, but they can take the turmeric powder, for example, or the curcumin in the tablet. It's the same way with vitamin B12. Some people I see that they are very low in vitamin B12 because they're not able to eat enough greens, but they can supplement vitamin B12. And later, when this vitamin B12 start to be in the good level, they slowly add in their diet. So it's a lot of things you can do at the same time. I just need to get in touch with someone who will help you basically to adjust the diets, the supplements around the medication.
That's great. Can I, there's another one. I don't know if because I realize we've run over now. So I'm just wondering if we should finish up with one that has really come in at the end, and then perhaps I could ask you and Deepak to answer the others afterwards. Yeah. And that is, once we make the dietary changes, how long is it before we can expect to see some changes, some benefits?
think I probably will say that I have had a few patients come through there, but I suspect Alicia, with her bread and butter role being in nutrition, she might be able to give more case studies and examples of how soon it can happen. I have had patients come back, migraine and fibro patients coming back and tell me it about 4 to 6 weeks, they started to notice difference. But Alicia, what would your experience be?
Generally speaking, there are science proof, not only my patient, but it's 5 days when we are able to change our gut microbiome on the bad way or on the good way. So 5 days going to, I don't know, Canary Island, staying in a hotel, you can go to this way, or you can go 5 days still on Canary Island and eat from the market, which is just next door, and you can come back as a new person, top up with vitamin D from the sun, you know. Just talking a little bit about this, because I know that many people will take, you know, different directions for the festive season. But honestly, it's around 1 week when you already will start to feel the difference in your stool, the energy level in the morning. And 1 week, it will help you to keep the motivation going. 1 month, we can see the results when we, for example, take the blood sample. If we do the blood count, we can already see after 1 month, for example, sugar level, what we usually check, and glucose, fasting glucose. It's unbelievable. I actually had so many patients, we dropped 20, 30 units over 3-4 weeks, changing the diet, you know, but it's really fascinating how the food can work for you. But as Deepak said, it's all about making the small steps and figure out how I would like to do it, you know. So if we start to do intermittent fasting and we see that this works for me, and I can do next step. So each single step going forward with nutrition will stimulate you to act. So you don't need to count the days and say, okay, Alicia said 5 days, so say 1 week and this doesn't work for me. It depends where I am, what is the point still, what I'm doing, and so many things around the nutrition. It's not only the food, but physical activity, my sleep, how I work on my sleep, how I work with my stress, how I deal, you know, if I'm mindful about my food, specifically if we are changing and we are adding new foods into our meal plan, we need to eat mindfully. We need to sit. We can't eat this food in front of the screen. We need to activate the digestive enzymes. We need to know how to produce more digestive enzymes, focus on what we are eating, chewing properly, having a lot of saliva, starting the digestion in our mouth, help to digest this new food. If you eat in front of here the screen, watching, even not seeing what I have on my plate, it's very difficult to digest.
Thank you. That's really, really interesting. I know myself, I started the intermittent fasting a little while ago. Noticed the results quite quickly, more energy, and just feeling a lot healthier right away almost. And I think we've all had that feeling that first thing in the morning that we say, oh, we're starving. And actually, if you have a drink, it seems to just go away. So if we didn't act on it, it just seems to pass off. So yeah, that's my own experience. Thank you ever so much, both of you, for such a fantastic session. I know we've all learned a lot, and I wonder if the questions we haven't had time for we'll get to afterwards. And I know Alicia's been wonderful, offering to come back in January and do a follow-up session for us. So when we've been naughty over the festive period, we can come back and reflect on it. We'll sort out a date and let everybody know afterwards. So it's just left for me to say thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us. And the recording will be on the website as soon as possible. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you all for having us. Thank you, Louise, and all members of the Footsteps Festival. And if I don't see you earlier, Merry Christmas. Thank you so much. And
yes, and Merry Christmas.